I chose to run. I left Europe because I didn't want the kind of wealth that came with cruelty and cold hearts. I wanted a life where people saw me with kindness and respect, not as a disgrace. But if the guests of the Grand Regent Hotel in New York had paid just a little more attention, they would have seen that there was something very different about Emily Reyes. Emily was 26, soft-spoken, kind-eyed, the type of person who apologized even when something wasn't her fault. She worked the morning shift on the 32nd floor, cleaning rooms most people could never afford to stay in, even for one night. To the world, she was just the girl with the housekeeping cart. But life has a strange way of hiding extraordinary stories behind ordinary faces. On a crisp autumn morning, Emily pushed her cart out of the service elevator, just like she did every day. New York was awake. Impatient voices in the hallway, the smell of expensive coffee, businessmen in tailored suits, and guests complaining about things she could only dream of having. She whispered to herself, "Just one day at a time, Emily. One day at a time." No one knew how heavy those words were for her. A year ago, Emily's life had been different. She once had dreams, a future she believed in, until everything collapsed in a single night. But in the Grand Regent Hotel, she never talked about her past. Starting over meant starting silent. Still, she carried something within her, a quiet grace that made people feel safe. Some guests noticed, most didn't, but someone was about to. That morning, a billionaire named Daniel Warren checked into the hotel. He was known not only for his wealth but for his cold, almost dismissive attitude. The world admired him, but those who worked around him feared him. Daniel was the kind of man who believed that success measured a person's worth. If you were rich, you mattered. If you were poor, you didn't. He was in New York for a high-stakes business deal that involved an international company in Europe. And as always, success wasn't an option, it was a requirement. Emily first saw Daniel in the hallway as she cleaned the suite opposite his. He walked past her without a glance, too busy on his phone to notice the young woman who gently stepped aside to make space for him. She smiled politely. He didn't see it. But Emily wasn't upset. She was used to being invisible. As she entered the next suite to clean, something unusual happened. Emily's phone began to ring, a number she hadn't seen in a very long time. She froze. Her heart raced. Not this number, not now. She stepped into the empty balcony to answer it, her voice barely above a whisper. "Hallo? Met Emily." Her tone changed, calm, fluent, confident. Almost like she became another person. Yes, she had just spoken in Dutch. And not like a learner, like a native. Inside the room next door, Daniel Warren wasn't alone. His business partner, Mr. Hughes, stopped mid-sentence. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Daniel looked up. "Hear what?" Someone just spoke Dutch. "Here, in this hotel." A young woman's voice. Daniel frowned. The timing was suspicious. They had a confidential Dutch business call scheduled in exactly 20 minutes. A call that involved sensitive information no outsider should know about. He brushed it off at first. "Probably a tourist," he said. But Mr. Hughes shook his head. That didn't sound like a tourist. That was fluent. For the first time that morning, Daniel's expression changed. The word fluent meant risk, and Daniel hated risks. Meanwhile, on the balcony, Emily's voice softened as she switched from Dutch to English, her hand shaking slightly. "I told you not to call me here. It's not safe." Her voice carried a weight of fear and history. Who was she talking to? Why was she hiding? And how did a hotel cleaner speak Dutch with such elegance? When the call ended, Emily stood still for a moment, breathing deeply, as if trying to hold herself together. She looked out at the skyline, the city buzzing with dreams she could not afford to chase anymore. Inside his suite, Daniel stepped closer to the connecting wall, listening. He had no idea that the woman on the other side, the one he didn't even acknowledge in the hallway, was about to shake the foundation of everything he believed about class, success, and worth. Because sometimes, the person you think is nobody is actually somebody the world wasn't ready to understand. Emily hung up the phone, unaware that her life was about to collide with Daniel's in a way that would expose secrets, test character, and change both of their lives forever. And it all began with a single phone call in Dutch. Emily returned to her cleaning trolley, trying to calm her racing heart. One call, just one call from the past, and suddenly the life she worked so hard to rebuild felt fragile again. She thought no one had heard her, but walls, especially hotel walls, have a way of letting the wrong people listen. Inside Suite 3204, Daniel instructed his assistant to delay the business call by 15 minutes. He needed to be sure. His mind was sharp, analytical, and trained to catch threats before they surfaced. And a fluent Dutch speaker appearing on his floor, by coincidence, on the same day of a confidential negotiation? He didn't believe in coincidences. He stepped into the hallway, pretending to make a phone call, but really scanning for the voice he had heard. That was when he saw her again, Emily, quietly folding towels on her cart with the gentle care of someone handling fragile glass. There was something refined about her, a grace that didn't match the simple uniform she wore. Daniel approached, his voice cool. I need fresh towels in my suite. Emily turned, startled, then smiled politely. Of course, sir. I'll bring them right away. Her voice was soft, humble, nothing like the confident Dutch tone he had heard minutes earlier. For a moment, he wondered if he imagined it. She followed him to his suite, carrying the towels with both hands. Inside, Daniel watched her carefully. Emily avoided eye contact, not out of guilt, but because she had learned in life that silence caused less trouble. But Daniel wasn't looking for silence. He was looking for truth. You speak other languages? He asked suddenly. Emily froze for the slightest second, almost invisible, but Daniel noticed. She answered gently, Just English, sir. His eyes narrowed. Are you sure? The pause before she answered was too long. Yes, sir. Daniel asked for the towels to be placed inside the bedroom. She walked in. He followed too closely. Emily felt uneasy. She placed the towels down, her hands slightly trembling. On her way out, Daniel stepped aside, blocking her path for a moment, subtle but intimidating. What's your full name? He asked. She swallowed. Emily Reyes. Reyes. Spanish origin. Yes, partly. And Dutch. Emily shook her head quickly. No, sir. She wasn't lying entirely. But she wasn't telling the truth either. Daniel didn't push further. He simply moved aside, allowing her to leave. But the seed of suspicion was planted, and he wasn't the kind of man to ignore it. Emily walked away with calm steps, but as soon as the door closed behind her, she exhaled shakily. She whispered to herself, Please, not again. Later that afternoon, Emily finished cleaning her assigned rooms. The staff cafeteria was half empty when she sat down with her simple lunch, bread, soup, and an apple she saved from breakfast. Across the room, 2 other cleaners were gossiping, loud enough for everyone to hear. You know the new billionaire on the 32nd? They say he tipped a waitress $500 for just coffee. Emily smiled faintly, not because of the money, but because she wondered what $500 would feel like in her hands. It was more than she earned in a week. But kindness from the rich was unpredictable. She knew that too well. Just then, Olivia, the front desk receptionist and the closest thing Emily had to a friend at the hotel, joined her at the table. You okay? You look pale. Emily forced a smile. Just tired. Long morning. You sure? Because it looks like you saw a ghost. Emily's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. She didn't see a ghost. The ghost called her. Emily shook her head. I'll be fine. I just need rest. Olivia studied her for a moment. She cared, but Emily was a locked book. A book she didn't push to open. Meanwhile, on the top floor, Daniel met his European business partners on a video call. The Dutch language filled the room, fast and formal. But Daniel wasn't paying full attention. He kept recalling Emily's voice. It was too perfect, too fluent, too natural. During the call, one particular name was mentioned, a name that made Daniel lift his head. Van der Meer. Powerful Dutch family name. Old money. Highly respected in Europe. His partner continued, Of course, the Van der Meer inheritance scandal last year delayed the merger. The missing family member has still not been found. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Missing family member. I am fluent in Dutch. A hotel cleaner hiding something. His instinct sharpened. He ended the call early, claiming a connection issue. But the moment the screen turned black, his mind was already connecting dots. He called his assistant. Find out everything you can about an employee here named Emily Reyes. Discreetly. Downstairs, Emily finished her shift and walked out through the staff exit, hugging her coat tighter against the cold evening wind. She didn't take the bus. She walked 30 minutes, because it saved her $2.75. Every dollar mattered. Her small rented room wasn't far. It wasn't a home, just a place where she kept her things and her memories. Memories she wished she could erase. That night, she sat on her bed, opened a small wooden box, and took out a locket. Inside, a faded photograph of a smiling woman with blonde hair and a gentle touch. "Mom, I'm trying," she whispered. She closed her eyes, and a tear slipped down. But fate wasn't done with her yet, because the next morning, when she arrived at work, the hotel manager was waiting for her at the entrance. Beside him stood Daniel, arms crossed, eyes cold. "Emily," the manager said, "Mr. Warren wants to speak with you privately." Her heart stopped. Something inside her knew. Everything she had been running from was no longer behind her. It was standing right in front of her. Emily followed Daniel and the hotel manager into a private lounge reserved only for VIP guests. She felt small in the large, luxurious room, like a shadow that didn't belong among the chandeliers and designer furniture. "Please sit," the manager said softly. Emily remained standing. Daniel's eyes examined her with the same intensity he used in boardrooms where millions were at stake. He spoke calmly, but his words carried weight. "Who are you, Emily?" She swallowed. I'm just a cleaner, sir." "No," Daniel replied firmly. "You are not." Emily glanced at the manager, who looked uncomfortable, as if he was caught in a storm he didn't want to be part of. Daniel stepped closer. "Yesterday I heard you speak Dutch, not just basic Dutch, native level. And today, I received information that doesn't match your job application." Emily's heart pounded. She thought she had erased her past. She thought she was safe. Daniel continued, his voice sharper now. "Why would someone with your background work as a cleaner? Who are you hiding from?" Emily clenched her hands. She had two choices: tell the truth, or lose everything again. Her small rented room wasn't far. It wasn't a home, just a place where she kept her things and her memories. Memories she wished she could erase. That night, she sat on her bed, opened a small wooden box, and took out a locket. Inside, a faded photograph of a smiling woman with blonde hair and a gentle touch. "Mom, I'm trying," she whispered. She closed her eyes, and a tear slipped down. But fate wasn't done with her yet, because the next morning, when she arrived at work, the hotel manager was waiting for her at the entrance. Beside him stood Daniel, arms crossed, eyes cold. "Emily," the manager said, "Mr. Warren wants to speak with you privately." Her heart stopped. Something inside her knew. Everything she had been running from was no longer behind her. It was standing right in front of her. Emily followed Daniel and the hotel manager into a private lounge reserved only for VIP guests. She felt small in the large, luxurious room, like a shadow that didn't belong among the chandeliers and designer furniture. "Please sit," the manager said softly. Emily remained standing. Daniel's eyes examined her with the same intensity he used in boardrooms where millions were at stake. He spoke calmly, but his words carried weight. "Who are you, Emily?" She swallowed. I'm just a cleaner, sir." "No," Daniel replied firmly. "You are not." Emily glanced at the manager, who looked uncomfortable, as if he was caught in a storm he didn't want to be part of. Daniel stepped closer. "Yesterday I heard you speak Dutch, not just basic Dutch, native level. And today, I received information that doesn't match your job application." Emily's heart pounded. She thought she had erased her past. She thought she was safe. Daniel continued, his voice sharper now. "Why would someone with your background work as a cleaner? Who are you hiding from?" Emily clenched her hands. She had two choices: tell the truth, or lose everything again. Her voice trembled. "Please, I don't want trouble. I'm just trying to live quietly. Daniel didn't move. Quiet people don't just happen to speak the language of one of the wealthiest families in Europe. At that moment, the door suddenly opened. Mr. Hughes entered, holding a tablet. Daniel, you need to see this. He tapped on a photo. Daniel's eyes widened slightly. On the screen was a picture of a girl, around 10 years old, standing in front of a large Dutch estate. She looked different, younger, but the eyes, the smile, the face, there was no doubt. It was Emily. Mr. Hughes whispered, Emily Reyes is not her real name. She is Amelia van der Meer, the missing daughter of the van der Meer family. The room fell silent. The hotel manager gasped softly. Emily closed her eyes in defeat, as if the truth ending her hiding hurt more than the lies she lived with. Daniel stepped back, stunned. You are A van der Meer. Emily slowly sat down. Her voice was tired, not of the moment but of years of running. Yes, but that name is not a blessing. Not to me. She looked down at her hands, as if ashamed of the blood that ran in her veins. My mother was Dutch. My father was a driver for the van der Meer family. They fell in love secretly. That family never accepted me. To them, I was a stain on their perfect name. Daniel and the manager listened, silent. When my mother died, they tried to send me away, to erase my existence. My father tried to fight for me. Her voice broke, but he lost everything. They made sure of it. She wiped a tear. I ran. I left Europe because I didn't want the wealth that came with cruelty. I wanted a life where people treated me with kindness, not as a disgrace. Daniel had expected a scheme, a spy, a threat, not a broken childhood. Emily continued, I changed my name. I worked small jobs. Cleaning rooms doesn't make me less human. It just makes me humble and free. Her last word echoed in the room. Daniel didn't speak. For the first time, he looked at her, not as a cleaner, not as a threat, but as a human being. She stood slowly. If you want to report me or send me back, do it. I'm tired of running. Daniel took a long breath, his expression shifting, not with judgment, but with reflection. No, he said quietly. For the first time, I think I understand something I never did before. He turned to the manager. Remove any investigation. She is not to be questioned again. The manager nodded, relieved. Emily blinked, confused. Why? Daniel looked at her thoughtfully. Because I spent my whole life believing that power and success made people valuable. But you, with nothing, have more dignity than most billionaires I've met. There was sincerity in his voice, tone he didn't use often. He reached into his coat and took out a business card, placing it gently on the table. This is the number of someone I trust in Europe. If you ever want to reclaim your identity or clear your father's name, they can help you. Emily stared at the card, but didn't touch it. She whispered, what if I don't want to be a van der Meer? Daniel smiled softly. Then don't. The value of a name isn't in how wealthy it is, but in how proudly you carry it. Tears filled Emily's eyes. Not of pain this time, but relief. She nodded. Thank you. Before leaving, Daniel said one last thing. You taught me something no business school ever did. That every person, no matter how small their role looks, carries a story you know nothing about. Emily exhaled, as if a weight finally left her shoulders. Weeks passed. Emily continued her job, but with something new inside her, peace. She didn't take the card immediately, not because she wasn't ready to face her past, but because she had finally stopped running from her present. And sometimes that's the first step to healing. Months later, she wrote a letter. No signature, no demands, just forgiveness. And she mailed it to the van der Meer estate. Not for them, but for herself. Because freedom is not leaving the past behind. It's letting it go. Never assume someone's worth by their job, clothes, or status. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Respect is the greatest wealth you can offer. And sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who choose kindness over revenge. If the story touched your heart, then tell me in the comments. Do you think Emily was right to hide her true identity? Yes or no? And why? If you felt the message, give this video a like. And for more heart-touching stories like this, make sure to subscribe. And don't forget to share this video, because you never know who might need this reminder today.